Hello, it's Molly Reamer with Bridget's Grove with a little flip through of my prayer book from August for 30 Days of Goddess. And this one I had an advertising leaflet, so to speak, from a cleaning supply company that came in this pocket. It was like an ad for the company, but I made the card. It had a little advertising cards inside. And I went ahead and used pieces from the We Moon Date book and also from a I Stand for Love calendar from Sarah Love, and I made them into these cool little cards. That's one of my own poems at the bottom, but that's a We Moon picture. I'm fond of this because it's from Burning Woman. It's by this artist, but it's on the cover of Burning Woman by Lucy Pierce too, so I like that also. So I made these little flip cards using that advertising material cardstock to go in the pocket. I'm not going to try to put stuff back in the pocket because it takes too long, but and then I made a little pocket with a proof draft of one of our 30 Days of Goddess Companion prayer deck cards, and then I have a scroll in here that was a poem I wrote called Beyond the Garden as part of our Lilith Circle that I've been holding this year, and so it's in there. I have a little scroll for pulling out and reading, and a bookmark with more snippets from We Moon, and then other little prayer cards and things inside of the bookmark, and then I kept that in the pocket because I needed it. I had another bookmark I was using in the book itself. And then Moon Wheel, I colored and filled out. I got a little off on it this time. The books hadn't quite come in time, and so I ended up writing in a homemade prayer book for the first few days of August, and now I'm using the homemade one as a backup. So on a day that I have too much to write, I'll go ahead, like today I had more to write than I had room for in my existing current book, and so I added to that. And then I'll go ahead on the days that I use it, I go ahead and decorate the other page, but then I'm not attached to this being sequential, so some pages were done in August, some are September, and I expect some will carry over into October at this rate too, because I don't do this one every day, but that was a way for me to use the homemade one as well. So I transcribed the things I'd written in the homemade book and then made them into little additions, printed them out, and put them into pockets of the other ones. So the content is still there, but I didn't have to write things. I find that one of the things, this is from a Missouri Department of Conservation magazine, and these are from Amy Cesari of the Planner for a Magical Year, and those are little freebies that she sends out, so I'd reduce those in size and cut them out. But one of the things that I find sometimes trips people up when they have multiple types of journal projects is the sensation that they have to replicate information across all their journals instead of recognizing that one can be for one purpose and one can be for another purpose. Oh, my chocolate chips there for my little snack. One can be for one purpose and one can be for another purpose, and not everything has to go into every book, and that relieves some of that strain of feeling like I have to move this over into here. So I had handled the moving it over nature by just printing out what I wrote and putting it into pockets instead of making myself write it by hand again. And there's the Beyond the Garden poem again. So some of these are, going along. We got new promo cards for 30 Days of Goddess, and so I stuck one of those in there. A little prayer card note from the back, and then also journal cards from Living the Questions. Those are available to you also. Feathers that I find, bookmark. I really liked that Beyond the Garden poem, so I made it to a bookmark too. It's included. This is part of our Lilith Study Circle. That was a coloring page that was part of the Lilith Circle Guide by Monette Chilson. The art isn't by her, but it was included as a coloring page, so I did that. Put a little feather on the top that I found that day. This is more from Girl God Study Guides. A little reminder note. Pieces from We Moon. Little prayer card books. I started to use some of our own business cards as little extra messages this month because sometimes I overlook those and I'm like, hey, I have those, they're colorful. I'm going to tuck them in as a little reminder with their little affirmation on the back. This is a part, oops, of a miniature prayer book that I had made for patrons at Patreon. That's patreon.com/wizardsgrove. I don't think that's actually been published for them yet. I make stuff ahead of time and then I schedule it, and then sometimes I forget the day I actually scheduled it. But then I'm just surprised, just like they are, when it comes up. Like, oh yeah, there's that thing that I made a while ago. I'd done a separate small video about this Call Forth the Sage Within. This was from an issue of the Phoenix Soul magazine. And then I had some leftover piece of art that I hadn't quite liked as much from Wee Moon, but I went ahead and was like, oh my gosh, it is cute. That's like the Sage Within. And so then I put it in, so it has this double meaning. Call Forth the Sage Within. Inside is the Sage Within. And then on the back, there's kind of a message, a little book message from the Sage Within as well. These are questions from a poem I wrote that was called The Wild Heart. So it's like the Wild Heart questions and the Wild Heart responds. And then these questions have been pulled out for living the questions. And so I felt like that tells a little story. I like going back through these books because they're kind of like a little choose your own adventure experience, and you can, not everybody would interpret what I do the same way as I interpret it, but that's the larger story that tells that may not be obvious at first glance, especially if you think of this as just crafts, instead of realizing that it has a deeper meaning and a deeper value. That was a Medusa, again from Girl God, Study Guide Materials, coloring page. More from the Phoenix Soul with some prayer by Suzanne Benson. My own little stuff. I make enough stuff that pretty much you can do a book with only the things that I provide and still have a lot to put into it without needing to come up with a bunch on your own. But I love it when people come up with stuff on their own too. Like, I don't want you to feel like it's a formula that you have to follow or you have to do it exactly like me. So I got really interested in, or got really inspired by this concept of like what daily practice is. And so I made these little note cards that say daily practice is a soft place to land, daily practice is making a space for magic, daily practice is to make room for yourself in your own life. I made a series of about 24 cards like that, and then I used them in various ways in different sizes as I went through this month. And I really found that I just really got inspired by that. Like, daily practice is so many things. Like, it's so many things. And what it isn't is a formula or a prescription or a must do or a must be. It's a soft place to land. It's for you. It's to connect you into the heart of your life. And then art mail from Amanda at the Phoenix Soul. And then inside, more from Amy Cesari from the Magical Planner for Magical Year. Those are things she sends out in her newsletter. I also like buying those planners, but those were freebies from her newsletter. These are really lovely yellow evening primrose flowers, but they turn totally black when I put them in my book, so I thought that was interesting. And this one I did a separate video about that too. This is a teeny tiny daily practice reminder book that I made accordion book style using those daily practice reminder cards. And vulture feathers, vulture down from one of my poems. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that back in there one-handed without kind of damaging it. Art from Joni Ray of Tales of a Kitchen Witch. I'm one of her patrons on Patreon too, and one of the things she does is provides these cool little coloring pages. I reduce them then to like half size or less than half size so they fit in my book. They're full page when you get them from her. And little notes. This is a tiny little book that was in my art mail from Amanda Fall, and it's like a little accordion type of folding book. So I got interested in that and made a couple more like that also because that was fun. I'm doing a Symbol Seeker's Journey with Fiona Beth of Global Village Witch and Tarot Tea Break Tarot. And so I make an extra copy of the Symbol Seekers cards that I'm making each week, and then I put that in my book. But I also make a larger one that I put, or not a larger one, but a more sturdy one that I put into my little, another little one of those little cards. I call those little chippies because they're like a little chip that you stick in. This one I was getting really, this is all the daily practice is things. Daily practice is this, daily, it was really coming through. And so I wrote it all down, and then I didn't have enough room for my poem. And I showed that to Mark, and he was kind of like, ooh, sometimes I worry about you. I'm like, I know, it does look a little bit, oh yeah, and I had so much more to write. I had to keep going in this little extra prayer book too. I filled up all the extra space in it also because I just had so much to say that day that I wanted to get down. It's important to me that I have my daily time without my phone, and so I didn't have anywhere else to type it, or I didn't have anywhere else to write what was going on in what the ideas I had. Oh, and apparently I didn't have a mood. I was so full of inspiration, there was no other mood. I didn't even notice that till just now. Living the questions card. More of these daily practice ideas that I was feeling so thrilled by. Another tiny accordion book with the daily practice cards accordioned in there. I do have an extra video and extra files about that for patrons as well. And they were sent out. Some of them, half of them were sent out with our newsletter. I showed this in a separate video too, but Dion of the Goddess Tea House had sent out some elemental journal prompt cards. And so I put those into the pocket as well. It's really tricky to get all my stuff back in the pockets. I had finished making those tiny books that I love so much, and so I went ahead and used their advertising material that came in the package. I cut it out so it would remind me of doing that. And then I made this little book with a washi tape binder instead of just glue. And these were, again, prototype cards for the actual printed prayer card deck that's available. Actually, it'll be available again soon. It was available for pre-order, and now it's sold out, and then it will be available later. That was some more art that came from Joni Ray, but it was one of her friends, and I now can't remember the person's name to credit them, but Melissa maybe? And so that was I like a book. Oh yeah, and then it has a book within a book. Oh, within a book. Yes, yes. Another Simple Seekers card. A little chip reminder inside there about daily practice. The poem I wrote today, I had picked some different herbs, and I just went ahead and put those herbs in there. Another little chip in here. Chip reminder. Past poems that were printed out. This, I made a little set of cards to go in this pocket that were different prayers. I just had these printed out as extra, and then they have the joy cards in the back, so I made them like reversible little affirmation extra cards that I put into my pocket. That was kind of just spontaneous. And I had done an offering that day with lemon balm from a friend, and so I put a little tiny bit of the extra lemon balm on the page as well, even though I let most of it go. This one I really liked. That's a little sticker my son made for me, but then I had this little extra piece of paper that I was trying to make a tiny book out of, and I messed it up, so I put it in like this. So it has a little fold out stuff, and then fold out. Fold out. That's what I mean about no, it's choose your own adventure all the time. Those are, I think, Rosa Sharon's from my mom's house, and then my little girl had written me a little note, a little envelope note, and so I made a pocket and stuck that in too. And then I got confused for some reason and thought this was going to be the last day of the book, so I stuck in this new ritual I'd written, the ritual for the honoring of the completion of a project, and I got it all prepped the day before. I have a separate video about pre-prepping journal pages, and I had put that in, chosen some art from Wee Moon and everything, and then I realized, oops, there's really 31 days. So then I had to cut one out of a test copy. I printed it out and I just glued it on the back side. So technically speaking, that page was really here. I covered it up and then had to re-glue it in. So that was a little silly. And then I didn't finish coloring these yet. I still might do that before I put this book away. And in the back is things that I didn't end up using that are waiting in my pocket. So this will now get moved over to my new book. So anything that I didn't use that I left in my supplies pocket in these books then gets switched over to the new book so I can use it then. So some things end up going into the pockets of multiple books before I actually get to use them, because I usually have more things than I actually need. And I had envisioned this pocket being the one that holds the extra supplies, but I didn't use it like that because it has those other cards in it. So anyway, that is this month's prayer book, and I hope you enjoy the flip through. Thanks for being here. Oh, and you can go to patreon.com/bridgesgrove or to bit.ly/30 Days of Goddess to find resources and downloads and free printables and all kinds of stuff to start your own practice.